you have to walk a fine line between cultivating that individual competitive drive within each of the people on the team, and yet also creating that team culture and the overall positive vibes that will be at the high level with your team and with your company. So that's absolutely critical. Part of my sales leadership philosophy stems from my upbringing. I was what they call a military brat. I moved around the world quite a bit before college with my dad, who was in the Navy. So moving around often helped me get along with different people and different cultures and learn how to adapt and be flexible. And I've tried to bring that into my business approach, if you will. Also, I had two other brothers, so there's three boys, all within basically the same age. I have an identical twin brother who became a very successful attorney, and then I have another brother who's 10 months older, who's a medical doctor. So my parents have a doctor, a lawyer, and me as a salesman. And I think I had a lot of fun in the process, maybe more fun than them, and probably made more money than both of them as well. So again, what that brought to my business approach is the competitiveness of growing up with siblings, competing in sports, competing for grades, competing even for girlfriends and things like that, and really always trying to win, but in a friendly way. So it kind of combines that work hard, play hard mentality and that competitive drive to be successful. And those are all the kinds of things that are really at the core DNA of how I approach the business world and the sales world.
Yeah, great. And competitiveness is a good theme because it's something people are reevaluating slightly. But I wanted to come on to something before that: a doctor, an attorney, and a sales leader. When we think about society and how they view salespeople, different in the UK versus the US. But like these are household traditional professions, an attorney and a doctor. People don't always have sales in quite as a positive light as actually they might those ones. And I'm really interested to hear how you respond to that and how that shapes your worldview in sales, maybe even the way you've sold yourself and the values that you've encouraged reps to have too.
Sure. So, I think that's a good point. And, unfortunately, salespeople have gotten a little bit of a bad reputation out there around the world. Frankly, so have attorneys in certain circles, and doctors nowadays with what's going on with COVID and with all the mixed messaging about the science and masks and wear them and don't wear them and social distancing, 6 feet, 3 feet. So you know what? It's interesting to look at the reputations that these three roles have. And it probably goes at the highest level, doctors, then lawyers, and salesmen. So you're definitely bringing up a good point. And what I've always told my people on the teams that I'm in charge of is that, listen, sales can be either one of the highest paying professions in the modern world, or it can be one of the lowest paying, and it's really your choice. And so I put it right up there with doctors, lawyers, professional entertainers, athletes, entrepreneurs, business owners. A professional salesperson can really make 6 figures, 7 figures. They can make a lot of money, and also they can have a lot of fun with it and enjoy the benefits of things like job satisfaction and career growth and income, and feel good about helping yourself and your family and also your customers solve problems. So I think it's all in how you present it and how you really go about pursuing your career. And if you do it with integrity and honesty and a good solid work ethic, I think that we can change that stereotype that salespeople do have around the world and put it higher up there on the ladder with other careers like attorneys and doctors and others. And it certainly is a goal of mine to try to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. And by the way, Jim, big fan of salespeople over here, but I appreciate your honesty in dissecting that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we were to ask, a buyer, for you, what would be really fantastic feedback for them to have on your salespeople and the buyer's journey? What kind of buyer's journey are you trying to curate, in your view?
Sure. So Great question. And, I often tell the people that I am lucky enough to lead and train and coach that don't think of it like really that you're selling something. Think about it really that you're solving problems for your customers. And that's really the core basis of what I think can keep us on the right track as far as matching up our sales process with the buyer journey so that the two of them are integrated and harmonious. And so really it's all about asking questions and understanding the needs and the pain and the problems of the client and understanding what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish. And then basically aligning our company, our products, our services around those to show that it is a solution that's a good fit for them. And we really try to customize our solutions and the features and advantages and benefits of the solutions so that they really fit our customers' needs like a really well fit glove instead of an overstuffed mitten is how I compare it. So I think as long as you really have the buyer's best interests in mind and you're truly trying to understand their motivation and their why factor and what they're looking for, and then you customize your solutions and your entire sales process around that, then you should be in pretty good shape to get some great feedback from your customers. And ultimately, those become lifetime customers that you can get referrals and references and testimonials and all that kind of good stuff from.
Yeah. Yeah, good point as well on the future possibilities of revenue as well there, Jim. One thing I wanted to return to was this idea of competitiveness. I think you stated really well how valuable that is. And I think the value of competitiveness in sales has been talked about a lot. It's more or less like agreed upon, I'd say. But also there are different opinions as coming through too. People talk about having a team dynamic as well, being team players as well as being individually competitive. And I'm interested to hear how you combine those two themes or where you place them in a priority of importance.
Yeah, that's a really great question because you're right there on the money with regards to the fact that you have to walk a fine line between cultivating that individual competitive drive within each of the people on the team and yet also creating that team culture and the overall positive vibes that will be at the high level with your team and with your company. So that's absolutely critical. And I would say that as far as kind of the secret sauce of how I've built these world-class sales teams over the years and helped take 5 companies into lucrative exits for combined market value of over $10 billion. Really, the number one thing is creating these competitive winning cultures and really trying to stoke the competitive fires of all of the individuals. You do it through really at the beginning in the recruiting process, looking for people who have a burning desire to be successful and who have a competitive background with things like sports and academics and whatnot. And then you set up a structure within your company and within your sales organization that really allows those sorts of qualities to flourish. And that would include things like really good training and development programs, and even more importantly, really good reward and recognition programs where you have competitive monthly and quarterly sales contests. You have annual President's Club trips and incentive trips. And those are the things that really get the teams focused and fired up, both at the individual level to compete to win and also at the team level. And I always tell my people that, listen, you want everyone to do well within the company because that's what's going to get us all to where we need to be, but you just want to do a little bit better. And that's kind of the general attitude of how we walk that fine line between individual competitiveness and the overall team culture of competitiveness and winning.
Yeah, understood. So it's a constructive way of viewing competitiveness that takes into account the broader team and organization, but thinking, I want to be the best there.
Yeah, just like a British football team or a soccer team or an American football team, the goal is for the entire team to win the match. But within that, each of the players can still strive to do their best and to shoot for certain statistics and personal bests and records and so on and so forth. But you have to keep things in perspective because ultimately the team is the most important. And so that is, in fact, that fine line that you always have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, great dissection. You've taken 5 companies to exit, as you said. Now, when we look at the world of particularly tech, particularly startups, it's a challenging landscape that does see a lot of a high number of folks who don't get that far, essentially. It seems like you found a really repeatable process to do it. If we look at companies from seed funding to exit, it's like a 9% success rate. For you, Jim, what you've seen, what you've done, what's some core principles and the core journey milestones folks need to get right to have the kind of success you've had?
Sure. So, I mean, at a high level, you have to have a good leadership team. That's the CEO, the CFO, the people on the board. You have to have good funding. You have to have a good product and be in a relatively relevant, viable sector. Cyber security, fintech, um, unified communications. These are some of the hotter ones right now. So if you're in a good industry and you're funded and you have a good leadership team, then that puts the pressure on the CRO to really deliver the revenue, top line revenue, and bottom line profitability. And that's really the part of the question that I can focus in on the most, since that's really what I've been responsible for. But you do have to have all of those other things in play, and then it's up to the CRA to go out there and really build that duplicatable, scalable revenue organization that oftentimes includes multiple teams. For me, I call it, using kind of a sporting metaphor, I use offense, defense, and special teams. So offense is the sales organization, the revenue generating units, if you will, RGUs. And these are different multiple distribution channels that I set up that include direct sales reps, alternate channels, such as channel partners and resellers and VARs, SDRs to set appointments and to kind of pump up that top end of the funnel, targeting trade groups and associations, and all kinds of different channels and distribution streams that bring in revenue from multiple different sources is typically the model that I like to run with my offense. And then as far as defense, that's your retention. That's your team that really covers your customer base and makes sure that you're not having customer attrition that is too significant to where you're having more customers leave out the back door than you can bring in through the front door. So that's really important to get that balance between acquisition and retention, between offense and defense. And then lastly, the special teams is kind of a mix of various different groups that also support the revenue organization, everything from sales operations to make sure we have the proper technology stack in place and that we have all the latest and greatest tools and resources to help our reps be productive and take advantage of technology. That's probably the one thing that's changed the most in the past decade in terms of sales. There's a lot of folks out there that talk about how sales has changed so much. A lot of these so-called sales 2.0 folks that are constantly preaching that everything's changed. I don't really buy into that. I think that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that really what has changed is the technology, but otherwise the sales process is still pretty much the same. But anyway, that's a whole nother question or conversation. Back to the point I was making about special teams. You have to have sales operations. You have maybe an in-house recruiter. You have marketing and lead generation. And so those are some of the groups that support that offensive and defensive structure and rounds out the entire revenue organization. So if you have all those groups properly staffed and motivated and trained, then you're going to be in the best possible position to be successful as an entire organization and as a revenue team. Lastly, really the kind of the engine that drives all of that is something that I call RTSA. It stands for recruit, train, sell, and administrate. And that's basically the circle of success that's constantly rolling down the hill here in terms of how we build out each and every one of these teams. So we have to recruit the best of the best. We have to train them to be successful. We have to sell and produce and hit the numbers. And then the administration is kind of the glue that holds it all together. That's everything from your CRM systems to your weekly one-on-ones, to your funnel reviews, to your pipeline reviews, to your forecasting, and all of that other stuff, which is again kind of that administrative and accountability aspect of the entire operation. So those are a few of the things that I focus in on to try to help these companies be successful and grow and ultimately be in position to exit.
Yeah, Yeah, great rundown, Jim. I like your phrase, the more things change, the more things stay the same. But at the same time, you are right. Data now in sales, revenue leadership is far beyond what it might have been a few decades ago. What has that changed for the life of a CRO and sales leader for you? And actually, what hasn't it changed?
Data and technology definitely has changed quite a bit for the CRO. Back when I started in sales in the 90s, the position CRO didn't even exist. It was basically senior VP of sales was about as high up as you got in the sales side of the business. And then they came out with CSO, Chief Sales Officer, and then CRO came around maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I think that's a very appropriate title to put us up there in the C level with the CEO and CFO and COO. But in terms of what's changed is really the technology has changed. So we've now got very sophisticated CRM systems and marketing systems and all kinds of different plugins that are part of the Salesforce.com ecosystem, so that a lot of these things can be automated. A lot of it can be integrated into various different departments so that everyone can see what's going on and have access to the data via reports and dashboards. And so really it just puts you in a much more powerful position to manage with data and to manage with facts instead of always speculating and wondering what's going on and possibly sending your team down a wild goose chase or down the wrong path. You can really make smart, educated decisions based on the data and then use that as a way to constantly recalibrate your business plan and make the necessary changes and adjustments and pivots if you're not getting the exact results that you're looking for. So I would say that from a sales process standpoint, a lot of the human aspects of the process have remained fairly constant. For example, you still need real live people booking meetings, doing presentations, having conversations, identifying needs and pain points and problems and all of that. But the technology that's working behind the scenes, things like voice analytics, Zoom conferencing, all of the various different CRM and sales and marketing tools has really been quite a game changer in terms of how much quicker and how much smarter people can be when it relates to running the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes onto your special forces team, doesn't it? The people who kind of tie all this stuff together. Now, part of the thing we're doing on this blog, Jim, is trying to connect the sales leaders, CROs, to those teams. And it'd be great to hear from you what a CRO really gets value from their ops team. I mean, what's some moments you've had when you thought, great, that really turned the needle for me, that helped?
Sure. Yeah, so they are a critical piece of the puzzle. I mean, I'm on the phone with my operations people on a daily basis, hourly basis, into the evenings and on the weekends. It's such a critical part of the team in terms of helping us evaluate different technology, helping us implement it and get it up and running, helping prepare reports and dashboards so that they're in real time and providing good visual information as to the critical KPIs within the organization. So just an absolutely critical overlay for all of the other different departments within the company: sales, support, engineering, product. That really is the glue that holds it all together. Critical piece of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah, great, Jim. It's good to hear another CRO sales leader really being convinced by the data. It's a big thing. A final question for you though: if you're in a room full of the best sales leaders of all time and the best CROs to have ever done it, what would you ask them?
Well, I don't usually like talking to myself, but
I have to assume you're not in that room.
That's right. I guess present company excluded. Well, I would ask them, what are some of your secrets? What's your secret sauce? What would you say to someone like me who's still, relatively young in the grand scheme of things to help me, continue to try to master the art and science of sales leadership? tell me some of your best wins and success stories. Um, and what are some of the war stories that you've generated over the years? Um, how do you take a struggling operation and turn it around without too much turnover? That's always a critical question that I like to learn from, because it's easy to fire people. The hard thing is to keep them and turn them around and make them successful. So I love learning different tactics and strategies on that. Um, what are some of the things that you've done to instill that competitive drive? Um, those would be a few of the things that I would want to learn from some of my fellow sales leadership peers.